the sound function are reserved only for our speakers when they speak. So please do make sure that your sound and your videos are off. All right, so to jump right into who we are as an organization, I'm quickly going to share my screen and hope that you can all see it. So the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce is part of a large chamber of networks abroad. We are represented in 140 locations in 92 countries worldwide, and so we're part of a large chamber of delegations and commerce industries. And we are present in Nigeria doing various things. We have been in Nigeria for 41 years, and we have departments focusing on business development, energy and environment, innovation and startups, skills development, and agribusiness, of course. Beyond that, we also engage in marketing, finance, administration, and events. And this webinar series is organized by the Competence Center Agribusiness together with SDG Market Building. At our Competence Center, we do various things. We engage in vocational training, we conduct webinars as we do it right now, we organize conferences and also conduct trainings in areas such as food and nutrition security, but also cashew farming and processing. In terms of our monthly webinar series, I had said earlier that the series started at the beginning of the year, and we meet on the first Wednesday of every single month for an hour to discuss various crops. This month we're looking at soybeans, and we have more topics lined up until the end of the year. If you follow the registration button as you registered for this, you would also have seen that you could pre-register for other webinar sessions, and we do invite you to join other webinar sessions because we always have really interesting speakers, very engaged and very interested, exciting and experienced speakers present their work in the field for the Nigerian market and beyond. So today we're looking at soyabeans, and our next session will be focusing on sesame seeds. We aren't organizing this by ourselves. Of course, I said earlier already, we are doing this together with our partners at GIZ, particularly the SDG Market Building Initiative. And I'll happily hand over to Zainab now, who will be speaking a bit about who they are, what they do, and how you as a participant can benefit from them as a service provider. Over to you, Zainab.
Thank you, Yinka. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen, a short presentation of what we do. And then I'll put in some information in the chat box if you want to contact us, but I'm sure Yinka will still share that with you anyways. But here we go. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so good morning. My name is Zainab Dati, and I'm a technical advisor at GIZ for the SDG Market Building, which is actually well, originally the project development program, which we support the SDG Market Building with project development advisory services. But I'm just going to go right into it. I think I only have like 5 minutes. So what is SDG Market Building? Basically, SDG Market Building is the plan is to be able to invest in agriculture in Nigeria by providing solutions in climate smart technology to reduce post-harvest losses and improve mechanization, which we would hope to improve also quantity and quality of the output in the agricultural sector. It is commissioned by the Ministry of Development and Cooperation. I always get this wrong, so forgive me. Providing free project business and development services. What we do is provide the support that your business needs to invest in efficient and climate smart green tech solutions in the agricultural sector. We are currently in Nigeria and Kenya with 3 main target groups, although we are not necessarily just focused on this, but these are the main target groups we're looking at. We look at different cases that come on board and see what we can help with, but we're looking at medium-sized farms and producers, aggregation levels, corporations, associations, cooperatives. And we're also looking at licensed warehouses and storage, like cold storage, warehouses where even barns, if possible, silos. We're looking at those sort of things. The technologies we're currently supporting are irrigation, post-harvest mechanization, and agrivoltaics. Agrivoltaics, which is still pretty new as a technology, is something we're definitely looking into. Post-harvest mechanization, we're looking at obviously things like drying, shelling, the kind of appliances or equipment you will need to process the output to increase the longevity or to increase the lifetime of the produce, so that there isn't waste or loss before it gets to market or during high or low seasons. That way you're able to store it. We're also looking at storage as post-harvest mechanization, irrigation, the different ways of irrigating the land most efficiently to also reduce water losses. So what do? What we do is we visit we identify opportunities in the agricultural sector using our target groups and looking at the technologies we're focusing on. We do this by drafting your investment dossier. We do a site visit to collect data, to speak with you, to find out your financial situation, what you're able to invest in, if you're able to invest in, what sort of funding is available, if we have to reach out to possible accesses to finance. We are not financing, but we try our best because we have a finance pillar, just to find out what is available to you to be able to get access to some financing or some sort of loan or grant to finance your business. We match you with tech solution providers by posting on our platform called Leverest, or even reaching out to just our network. Sometimes we use our business scouts within GIZ. Like I said, match you with suitable finance partners. We're available. We do our best to find where you can get any sort of finance. This is your investment, your ROI, your returns. We do not have any claims to it, except just to provide some sort of service to you to develop your business case and to be able to reach out to possible investors. So like I said, connect local businesses with technology providers globally or locally as well. But yeah, we use German, international, local through the platform Leverest, which I'll share beneath. So this is Leverest. These are some of the businesses from Nigeria that we have on Leverest right now. So what we're looking at is this is from our work that we do. We've developed this. We have the dossiers prepared. We now put it on Leverest. We share with our networks. We share with current providers we have if they're willing to look into these opportunities. We also welcome technology providers to also sign up on Leverest to see what is available. So not only do we want to be able to provide this service to you, to the farms or businesses that need us to develop their projects, we're also looking at technology providers to also sign up on Leverest to see opportunities where they can come in and actually support or provide the solutions to this. So please do sign up on Leverest. I'm going to put the information on the chat for Leverest and put up a flyer as well, so you have a general idea of what we do and how you can contact me whenever you want, if you have any questions or you just want to work with us, and we'll schedule a meeting. Thank you very much. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Zainab. And I'll hand right over to Desmond, our speaker for today, and just to share his experience on soya bean production and processing in Nigeria. Over to you, Desmond. Desmond, we can see your presentation. Please show your face and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's actually nice being in this webinar series. First of all, I will thank Olayinka and the AHK team, delegation team. And it's actually nice to share my own experience on what we're doing as an organization in the soybean production and processing value chain. My name is Desmond Elo Mukuru. I'm the principal consultant of the Faro Integrated Service. So basically, we'll just move on. The agenda or point of discussion, we'll look at what the Faro is, post-harvest as it relates to soybean. solutions using value chain approach. We're also going to be looking at our project in Nigeria as it relates to soybean and progress. Soybean processing, some of the processors we've been able to meet in Nigeria. So we'll move on straight. The company in different areas service a registered business with the Corporate Affairs Commission since 2013. We actually look at rendering consultant service and capacity development with the aim to deliver professional and technical service to our clients through research, training, data collection, and analysis. We also look at stakeholder engagement, value chain development, creativity, and innovation to meet the client's expectation the first time, every time, and everywhere, while improving on our organization's performance. What's our vision? Basically, we're looking to be the leading consulting firm that inspires professionalism while delivering value to our clients. How do we intend to do this? Our mission is to conduct research, engage stakeholders, explore creativity, impact knowledge, develop competence, and enhance our potential in order to perform and transform the minds of our clients. Like I said, the first time, every time, and everywhere. So the businesses we're into agribusiness. In agribusiness, we look at where the value chain development, we look at trade facilitation, commodity brokerage, and warehouse management. We also are into renewable energy, policy and strategy, organization development, human resource, which is also talent management, research and development, oil and gas trainings, in the environmental impact assessment program. So some of the projects we've been able to do, funny enough, most of our projects actually is funded by or sponsored by GIZ setting projects. Presently, we're working on value chain development, technical support for MSMEs, cooperative, market actors, and other institutional actors in the soybean value chain for income and employment creation in Niger State. So that is where we're bringing our experience and knowledge based on what we're doing in soybean value chain. We've also done digitization of cooperative, seeing how cooperatives can become digitalized in terms of their systems to be able to access finance. So they have a proper digital system, upload their data using digital solutions. So I think it would be nice for SDG markets building to look at some of these solutions that we are able to come across with. We've also looked at institutional members' need assessment for development of support mechanisms to facilitate access to finance for some supported, for some GIS setting supported cooperative also in Niger State. We've looked at how to facilitate access to CBN and Cobras program for cassava and potato value chain actors in Ogun and Plateau State. Then we've also looked at, we've done a research on the federal government of Nigeria intervention across agribusiness value chain in Nigeria. That we did in 2018. Our team are highly skilled professionals with degrees in economics, engineering, strategy and policy, agriculture and extension, project management, and human resource management, and so on. Moving on, post-harvest loss in soybean. One of the major things we need to look at is for there to be post-harvest loss in soybean, we look at four major segments. So we're looking at the harvesting, we're looking at the process of harvesting process, drying process, storage process, and the transportation process. Now, the first process, which is harvesting. From what we've been able to find out, harvesting loss could range from between 10 to 20%, and and as low as maybe 5% is accepted, whereas loss of 3% is more considerable for an excellent harvest. Just before that, I would say that in Nigeria, the average harvest or yield per hectare is about 1 ton per hectare. So you can imagine if you harvest 1 ton and you lost about 10 to 20%, which is about 20, which is going to give you about 0.8 tons. So that's also a very huge or significant loss just at the harvesting level. So there are 3 types of harvest loss encountered during harvest. These are namely pre-harvesting, gathering, threshing, and cleaning losses. So you look at pre-harvest loss. These are losses which occur in terms of the seeds or pods detached from the stalk are found on the ground. So when you come to your field, you want to harvest, you'll notice that some of these stalks have already broken, and you're beginning to see some of these seeds on the ground already. And these losses are due to natural causes, but then it is mainly because of not harvesting at the right period. So, for example, if you plant your soybean and you're looking at maybe 60, maybe even 109 days of harvest. If you are looking at it properly, if you don't go towards the end to monitor the process, you'll see that by the time you go, if you give it some time, by the time you go to your farm, you notice that some of these seeds are already broken and they're already on the floor. So that is already a loss for pre-harvest. One other loss we look at is in terms of gathering losses. This occurs when all the seeds or harvest pods are not put together. So in the course of harvesting, the way the pods are, you have to start pulling them. Sometimes it's a long stretch, and because harvesting is normally done using the local way in terms of hand harvesting and all of those things, it's also a very tough and tedious process. So you can decide to harvest. It's a very manual intensive process. So you can decide to be cutting off or plucking off all the harvest pods, and you'll notice that maybe you decide to do it in some region, gather in a particular region, go to another region, gather in another region. You'll notice that maybe by the time you come back, most of these pods within that same place are already left on the floor, which sometimes will not be able to carry. So you carry just the ones you want to be able to carry to use at that point in time. One other major challenge is in the threshing or winnowing and cleaning parts. That will result from operations that separate seeds from pods and remove dirt found in seeds. So, like in our society, we still use the local way to do it. So we use people to do our threshing. What does threshing mean? Just to remove the pods and remove the pods from the sticks. That way, what we do is we just gather people, we give them some parts, so they use their hands to do these things. And you can imagine what that process would be and how tedious that can be. So during threshing loss, unthreshed seeds remain in the pods, pass through the hawks machines for those who use machines, whereas other seeds are cracked by a cylinder. So that's another thing. In using, there are two ways. So if you're using the hand, you see that by the time you use your hand and you're tired, you will lose some of these things. Some of these things may also fall to the ground, which you may not want to pick. That is one. So when you're using machines and you are not able to use the machines properly, what it means is some of this, in the cost of threshing, you'll get broken seeds or cracked seeds, or those even stored within the machine, depending on how the machine is. Most of our local machines, you still have some of this debris within it. That is also a loss in terms of post-harvest. Meanwhile, cleaning loss are observed in terms of sorting using racks. So, after you finish threshing, you use racks or sieves to want to sieve the dirt out. That way too, we still have to lose some of our produce. So we can imagine all this process, because most of this process is actually done manually. It's a tough one for us, so we lose a lot of our soybean just in the harvesting stage. Moving on, drying process. Now, in cost of, so there are two ways. For those in terms of production, by the time you get your seeds and store them, some people may just want to store them directly, depending on the level of dryness. But basically, for a proper seed, good quality seed, you're looking at between 10% to 12% wet base. That is what is actually accepted for those who want to process it. So drying is a process, is a post-harvest process that involves the transfer of heat and the removal of water from the material. So sometimes when you harvest, the moisture content is still high, so you need to dry a little to be able to get to your 10%, 12% wet base. Normally we do there are about two processes, and the natural drying process, the artificial drying process. Now, natural drying process is a sun drying. In our communities, the kind of things we still do today is that we spray these seeds on the ground, on the streets, and just in sacks and just spray them on the streets or on the roads, just to allow the sun to come dry it. It's also a good thing to use the sun, but I think it can be more effective because laying them on the street like that, you have chickens come to eat it, you have birds, you have insects, you have contaminations in terms of stones and dust. Sometimes you see these things spread on the ground where you have moving vehicles, and it's also a big challenge. So these are the things. So that's where the national drying process. If you look at the screen there, you see that there is a picture where you can actually do your drying without having that contamination. So that's first picture helps in terms of drying using the sun drying without actual open air methods. The second one is the artificial drying. Artificial drying or mechanized drying is an advanced technique of drying, mostly practiced by developed countries. It's we have what we call the oven dry, the freeze drying, spray drying, microwave drying, radio frequency drying, and infrared drying. So these are more advanced drying, and the technology is also more advanced, and in terms of affordability is also a tough one. So I think using this other local one, like we saw there, we also have the solar drying, which is also the picture down below. Moving on straight. So look at the process flow for the post-harvest processing. So in the hulling, all these are optional. So this is actually how the flow goes. So from your drying process, you can have the soya husk, or you can have your full fat soya meal or grits, depending on what you do at that level, whether drying, cracking, dehulling.
Our speaker seems to be having some connection issues.
Can you hear me?
Desmond, yeah, we can hear you now. You were gone for a few moments.
Oh, sorry. So I was just showing you the soybean processing flow diagram. From the soybean at the farm, you go to the drying process, cracking, dehulling. From that process, you move either to the soya hulls, where you have the soya hull addition, the solvent extraction or soya meal down, or you go through the full fat soybean meal or grits, where you can either have extruding, expelling, or solvent extraction. Some of these processes, we still have to lose some of our soybean because of how it is. But the beautiful thing about soybean is every extract from the process can be used for something else. So when you do your extruding, you can get your crude oil, soya oil. Then from the extruding, you have expeller soybean meal or soybean cake. You can have also extruded expeller soybean meal. Also from that same process, you can get the fatted flakes, which you can get dissolventing, toasting, or you have flash dissolventable or heat vacuum drying. When you pass it through the heat vacuum drying, you have your white flakes.
Desmond, you're back.
Okay, sorry. I think maybe network is actually infringing. Okay, so this is actually how we get the process. We'll move on straight to our storage process.
Our speaker's network seems to be very unstable. Desmond, perhaps you can switch over your network, but it's really bad.
Okay,
we keep losing you. In the meantime, I would ask the audience to please use the chat function to introduce themselves and also ask any of their questions. I can see that Nana's hand has been raised for a few minutes. Please use the chat function to ask your questions, and we will return to all the questions at the end of the presentation. So none of the questions that you have, none of the burning questions will get lost. Please use the chat function to ask your questions. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
We can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So sorry for that. I think the networks have been moving on. I just switched to another network now. I think this should be preferable. Okay, so for storage process, the storage is a post-harvest process whereby agricultural produce and its derivatives are kept for future use. Now, if you look at the picture on the left there, you see how some of our locals store their produce in some kind of pots, and they pour the grains into it. So you can imagine the process of even moving this grain. In transportation, we'll look at that too. To pour it, we lose some of these grains. So these issues. So we have to look at for storage, what are the storage? So that's why we looked at this. In the course of what we're doing, we see that this is a warehouse below. This is how we should have our warehouses in terms of our storage. So the structure is very key. It's not good for rains to touch our structure. We have to do a proper if we need to have good produce at the end of the day. Storage problems for soybeans. Storage loss are categorized into two main factors: the biotic and abiotic. The abiotic factors include packaging materials, relative humidity, and rainfall.
May I suggest that you switch
first of all, look at the
camera?
kind of package.
Perhaps if you switch off your camera, we can maintain the quality of the sound.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just give me a few moments. Okay, can you hear me? Is it better now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We're looking at the biotic and abiotic factors. So, like I said, our packaging materials needs to be properly sealed. We also look at temperature, relative humidity, and rain. Most of the losses occur due to poor sanitation. That's another thing. We have to be very careful how we handle our harvest. We lose a lot of this process, and you can imagine what that means. Biotic factors include microorganisms, rodents, birds, and insects. So this is basically around your storage structure or facility. You have to keep, first of all, no produce should be kept on the bare ground because it will attract humidity, and that is not too good for your produce. It will get spoiled and all of those. So if you look at the warehouse, they are all racks under, and so you lay your top racks. These are very important. So grain losses can be classified as loss that relates to physical loss and indirect loss, loss in quality and nutrition. So when we're looking at post-harvest loss, it's not just the loss of your produce, you're also looking at the quality of your produce. So if they say, okay, you need to get between 10 to 12% of your soybean, and you're getting 30%, that's already out of the markets. You can't get good pricing for that. And these are the challenges that we have. We also have loss of nutrition too, if we do not have proper storage or handling system. So like I said, also one of the things we look at is storage climate. So the same thing, just the structure, the environment that your commodity is stored is also a very key issue in terms of managing your post-harvest losses. Now, this is taken from one of the, if you look at this picture, the top one, it's taken from one of the farms I visited. This is how they do their transportation. So you can imagine what that means. Soybean have to be moved throughout the post-harvest system. This includes soybean transport from the harvest fields to a threshing or drying site. From there to storehouses or warehouses or to collection centers. From there to the processing industries, also a bigger central storage building. From there, from these industries or storage buildings to wholesalers or retailers for final marketing. So there's always a movement of goods or soybean from one point to another. You can imagine the truck that is loaded with this kind of soybean, and you move on the road, and there is going to be accidents because it's already the way it is also is bending. And sometimes we see some of these things on our streets, on our roads, and these are very tough issues around how we move or transport our goods. These are risky things. You can imagine, okay, having all of this, and you move on the road, and this truck has an accident. You probably lose almost all you have, and that's a challenge. So traditional transport in places where the road network is underdeveloped, and which is actually what our system is about, and agriculture is traditional. Yes, some people even use their donkeys or sometimes horses to move these goods. These days, there are smaller trucks like the tricycles that people use. And I think in some communities in Niger State, we have people who use these trucks, these tricycle kind of trucks, to help move goods from one point to another. I think it has helped save some losses within that system. If not, in some other locations, after harvesting, they put in the rubber and they have to take it on their head and they have to move. All these kind of processes actually can result to the kind of losses that we have. Now, otherwise, small trucks are used to transport small quantities of soybean, generally packed in bags. So this is how far we come for the post-harvest environment. Now, looking at our solutions using a value chain approach, like what we're doing in Niger State. One thing we're able to do is, first of all, for soybean, one of the challenges we have with soybean is there's no policy or mandate or even a conscious effort to get people within that system and the farming process. Now, what we started doing is we looked at the value chain, the inputs, the production, the bulking, the storage, the processing, the marketing, and the consumption. At the input level, we're looking at extension service. Those people who would look at helping the farmers at the site in terms of their handling, both in the use of pesticides, both in the use of even planting, and how we can get planters and use the planters properly. We also use community-based credit providers for those who need funding for doing their stuff. We looked at input suppliers shop and also what Research Institute does in terms of the kind of seeds that wants to go in. Then for production, we looked at soybean cultivation. So we did trainings, or we're doing trainings presently for farmers. We collaborated with some other organizations, which you will see as we go. So soybean cultivation, we look at the harvest, threshing, cleaning, smallholder farmers and producers. In the production side, we also have the soybean dried grain. So there are some people who just go into the drying of soybean. Then people who look at local market. So normally in every kind of community, we have what they call the local markets, which have market days. So they bring their produce to those markets to be able to sell to off-takers. So that is one of the things that we looked at, and that is a very huge process that we're also looking at, how we can manage and help the process of reducing post-harvest loss along that particular market. Because sometimes when you go to the market, you see some of these grains on the ground, either the bags are leaking and all of those things. And these are losses for the owners of these businesses. So we're also looking at what we can do with them and educate them and sensitize them and the kind of bags that should be used. Storage, we're looking at on-farm storage to have maybe for each farm, let's have a small, maybe a constructed place where they can actually have it. But we're also looking at speaking with some private sector who can have small storage facilities in different farming settlements before they move to the private warehouses for off-taking. Aggregation. So we aggregate them into these smaller points. then look at the private warehouses that would just pick up all those aggregation. Then we can look at exports in that direction. For processing, we have the artisan and local condiment producers who produce the tofu, who produce the cake, who produce some soybean oil, milk, just few. We also are looking at the livestock feed, who are the major users of the soybean as it stands presently in Nigeria. About more than 40% of our soybean goes to the livestock feed manufacturers. Then we look at the oil millers who mill the soya into oil. We're also looking at, and we have one we're working with, Jedu Oil in Suleja. Then for food and beverage manufacturers, you can talk about Nestle. They fall within that same category. Then distributors. So as part of the value chain approach, we're looking at all of these parts of the value chain and see how we can have targeted solutions to these different segments, so that we can help not just preventing post-harvest loss, but also help to improve the economic of the actor across the value chain. Because if you save more soybean and prevent post-harvest loss, the person has more value and can be able to make more money in that direction. So we look also at the consumption level. What have we been able to do? We've been able to identify and map all the relevant stakeholders of soybean value chain in Niger. So first of all, you see people just form themselves into cooperatives. Presently, we are in a process of gathering data of soybean actors, and so we're categorizing them differently. So don't tell us you are in a cooperative, which is beautiful, but we need to know those who are actually farming soybean, those who are actually processing soybean, those who are actually input suppliers, those who are actually marketing soybean. So this we are able to do. We are beginning to gather data from across 9 local governments in Niger State, and this is a process that is ongoing. We have also, so like I said, developing a database for all soybean actors across the value chain in Niger State to implement targeted solutions for these actors. Also, we're organizing the various actors across the value chain into cooperatives. So we want to know that it's a farming cooperative for soybean. We want to know that these people are processors of soybean differently. So if we want to give targeted solutions, it's easy for us to be able to do that. We want to know these are marketers of soybean. So it's easy for us to be able to relate and find those solutions to them. We're not doing this alone. We're partnering with the USAID Feed the Future project. There they have the extension service. We're also partnering with AGRA, and we're looking at 1 acre fund. We're building synergy. Our project is the GIZ project, funded project. So we are partnering with these different organizations to see how we can help. So for extension service for the farmers, we're looking at USAID, who are already on ground in Niger. They're doing a lot with their projects. For post-harvest loss, we're also looking at AGRA. AGRA is also doing a lot. And also Access to Finance 1 acre fund. They're doing a lot for farmers to help them be able to, because one of the challenge of soybean is even the seeds. The seeds are not available. So one other challenge of post-harvest is the fact that if in this season you plant a particular seed and you harvest maybe 5 tons, what these people do is they keep 500 kg for the next planting season. And when you plant that, if you made 5 tons initially, by this new season, by the time you farm and you come out, you're making something maybe 3.5 or 4, which is already a loss because of the kind of seeds that we're using. We are recycling our seeds, while we should be using more improved varieties and all of these things. So this is a challenge, and we're trying to see how we can help. I know IITA has also worked in that direction, and they're working seriously to produce better seeds for these farmers. We are also partnering with private sectors like FX. For FX, as we speak, in the last 1 month, FX has been able to acquire a lot of warehouses across Niger State. Not just the big warehouses, they've also had small warehouses in small communities. So you can see we're trying to solve that other post-harvest challenge. And we've also went ahead to tell them that, see, come, we don't just want you to be able to have the warehouse. We want you to have well-developed treasures, so that these people would harvest and bring these things to your warehouses, where you will help them treasure and bag for proper storage. So this is a process we're ongoing, and we hope that we'll have more progress as it goes. Crop Bank is also thinking of doing something like that too. We are also engaging the government, so we cannot do it alone. We're engaging Niger State government in the area of institution strengthening. The Niger State has also empowered the commodity exchange in Niger State, and we are working with them to see how we can help solve the soybean challenge in Niger State. For Niger State Agricultural Mechanization Agency and the Technology Incubation Center, we're also looking at designing some of these stretchers that people will use, and some harvesting tools, with also the solar dryer. So these are some of the conversations that we are having presently, and we are seeing how we can help them through our programs to fix and stop post-harvest. We are also creating market linkages across soybean value chain actors. So across the actors, we want to be able to say, if you're a farmer, a processor should be able to come get this. So if a processor is not getting it from you, they should get it from the warehouse, where you get already certified or specified seeds that meets their demand. That way, creating that linkage across the value chain, we make sure that it is more sustainable for every actor to benefit from it. We are also looking at conducting capacity development trainings for agencies of government, with even agencies of government like NAFDAC. So in terms of processing, we want to be able to teach you how to actually handle your process, teach you what hygiene is in terms of your packaging processes, teach you what it is to put quality assurance processes in your processing methods. So we're looking at also with SON, NEPC, for those who want to export. We're looking at how we can encourage them to be able to do this. CBN in the area of finance and post-harvest. So these are the kind of trainings and activities we are doing to help stop the post-harvest loss in soybean in Niger State presently. Moving on, we just see some of the produce. So soybean processors in Nigeria. So you look at, like I said, most of the poultry industries use soybean. We have the Amobin, we have Obasanjo farms, and Adaria farms. Then so these are people who produce their own feed. The Novum Agric Industry, Supreme Feeds, the Premier Feeds for Top Feeds. You have UAC Livestock Feed. These people are the ones that actually use soybean within our system. And you can imagine, if we're not meeting up our demand in terms of soybean and we're having a lot of loss, it means that we'll be having huge challenge in terms of the forex that goes into importation of soybean. And so these are the people that actually use our soybean. For oil, we have Jedu oil in Suleja, and also we know ground oil also use, ground cereal also use soybean. Others are also there in terms of the edible soy oil that we use. So another thing is, for your milks, soybean has a very strong or quality protein in it. So you can imagine what the milk can do for you. So if you look at Hollandia started using soya for their milk. Nestle, in terms of their baby food, Vita milk, which is already there, soya milk, they actually have been there for quite some time. Then we have the soya nuts and all of these things. These are the things that are in the market, and we can help to make this industry is going to grow if we do and use great technologies to be able to help in post-harvest losses. So thank you very much for your time. This is my information for those who want to reach me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Desmond. This has been so informative and very insightful. Thank you so much for taking the time to really talk us through the various stages that soybean production processing goes through, and at what stage along the value chain there are high number of losses. I'm curious, and I don't know whether the audience has a couple of questions. We still have about 10 minutes, so please do use the chat function to ask your questions. But in the meantime, I have a question around location. So you had said that you're very active in Niger State. What drove your decision to start looking into post-harvest losses for soybeans in Niger State specifically? Why Niger State?
Okay, so like you already know, since it's a GIZ consulting job, so GIZ for setting, they have different locations where they are actually working for the setting projects in GIZ. They have Ogun State, they have Niger, they have Plateau, and they have, I think, Lagos and Edo State presently. So that's what informed us doing more what we're doing in Niger State. However, I am also trying to reach out because I have some contacts in Benue. So we're also trying to see how, because Benue is one of the highest producers of soybean in Nigeria. So we're also working with them. I think I had a conversation with the IFAD value chain actor in Benue State. So I think we're trying to do something to help the Benue State soybean. However, too, we're also looking at making it national. We can start from Niger State and we can take it to the Nigerian. In fact, in the coming days, I was with my advisor from SEDIN and we actually spoke about having a soybean conference. We need to have soybean. We need to promote soybean the way the rice thing is even going. I think if we do more of soybean, we would forget what crude oil really is. Because in the US, soybean is a very huge market. They are very interested. And funny enough, there are also centers in Nigeria that do a lot in soybean. So that's why.
Okay, great. During your solutions, you touched upon the topic of access to financing, which we know is always problematic. And when it came to input, you mentioned something about community-based credit providers. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Okay, so what we observed is some of these, generally people in communities have what they call, well, let's say cooperatives or so I'll use more of the word associations, a group that they all belong to. So what do? They come together, pool their resources together to go into farming. That's one of the ways they do it. So even if you don't come to give them input and all of these things, they will farm all year round. Because why? They'll pull their resources together, they'll buy the inputs, go by themselves to do the farming and harvest and have this. It's more like a community-based kind of thing. So you see that in different communities. Now, when you come into that kind of community, you want to be able to see how you can help strengthen them. So if there's access to finance, so you want to look at what are the things. And one thing they do also, they make contributions. Weekly contributions, sometimes monthly contributions. Some of these contributions are what they use and pull together to be able to go into business. And so these are the things that they do. So and some of them also have some microfinance institutions around them that is also helping to strengthen them and provide them with access to finance. So these are the things that we're able to see within that space.
Great, thank you so much. When speaking about access to seeds, you mentioned improved seed varieties. Have you been able to purchase improved seed varieties for some of the farms that you work with, and where have you been able to source them from?
Okay, so in the last, so we spoke with FX actually doing about 5,000 in this first season of it, because this is a farming season now. So they're about doing about 5,000 of it. And when we discussed with them, we asked them, are you guys giving seeds to these people? And they were like, no, not now, but in the next farming season. So what we're going to do within now and that next farming season is because we're going to meet, IITA has done a lot in terms of improved seedlings. We want to see how we can have that linkage between IITA, FX, and other, for example, flour mills who are also part of giving out inputs to farmers to farm for them. So we're looking at how we can have that linkages. We also know that the National Cereal Research Institute have also done some farm testing to see what these improved varieties can do. But the challenge is they've not been able to get to the commercialization stage. So how can what we're looking at in terms of input is seeing how we can link these institutions, these research institutions, to the private sectors to be able to uptake seeds that are already improved and give to farmers to see how we can get better yields and better value for money.
Great. One of the things that I'd also asked you to share, which I think is the most interesting for most participants, is specific success stories. Would you be able to share with us some of the data from farmers that you have worked with in the past, and how high their losses perhaps were before you took on consultancy with and for them, and how they have improved or reduced, mitigated some of their losses ever since you've been working with them? So just a few statistics and hard facts.
Okay, so I would look at there's Jeju Oil. Before we came in, they were doing, in fact, most of their soybean was not from Niger. They actually get their soybean from Ogun State, the West African soil. But since we came in, what we've been able to do is to get them to start looking inward within Niger States, and as we speak, they are trying to also get some facilities to help the soybean farmers and also for extension services. We also had to work with some cooperative in Lapai, the Lapai soybean processing and production cooperative. Initially, like I told you, average yield per hectare is 1 ton. As of last season, we had that cooperative, almost all of them give an average of about 1.3 to 1.4 tons per hectare. And that was because of the different extension service we had with them, the engagement we had with them, the processes we had with them, to be able to see if we can increase it from just the average of 1 ton to something higher. And we had that in Lapai for close to 5 different cooperatives, having over an average of 1.3 ton per hectare. So I think that gave us a good boost to say that, okay, yes.
Desmond, we seem to have lost you again. Can you hear us? Desmond, are you there? While we figure out whether he can hear us and whether he'll be coming back, I can see that Nana's hand is raised again. Could I please ask you to use the chat function to ask a question, and then we can treat that. I'm just going through the chat to see if there are any questions. And I can see that there's one by Thomas Koenig. Hi, Thomas. Before I read that question out, Desmond, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes,
okay, great. So I'm going to read out the question by Thomas Koenig. Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Koenig, working at GIZ at the Innovation Fund for Agriculture and Food Processing, I4Ag. Thank you, Desmond. One question. Are hermetic bags used in storage facilities? Hermetic bags, is that, are those bags that you used for storage?
Okay, so I had hermetic bags. Yes, so I think ProGreen and Go have their kind of hermetic bags. And their hermetic bags, and we're trying to see how we can get more hermetic bags to be used in terms of storage.
Okay,
also
so
in
that's
terms of relative
yes.
humidity for grain. So, yes.
Great, thank you. There's another question by Adifemi. How have farmers been able to manage the farmer herder crisis? Is this something that you are experiencing or exposed to in your region in Niger State where you are working with them? And how have farmers, or how have you been able to deal with that farmer herder crisis?
Okay, so what I would say about farmer herders crisis, in the regions where we work, it's actually not too much of a problem. It was the only major local government that had that issue. But I think presently the situation is reduced, not fully reduced. So personally, I want to go to those environments. What we do is we have engagements with representatives and in that environment where we do step down trainings to the community people. So yeah, so far we've been able to manage it. And again, for the crisis, majority of the crises are happening in the mining environments, like Shiro and all those environments. So, but the farming side, we have less crisis. So I think it's easy for us to manage.
Okay, great. A final question from my end. We only have about 2 more minutes. And if there is a question from the audience, still, please use the chat function and I will read it out as a final question. So please do that while I ask Desmond my final question. And that is, you had mentioned quite a few areas during which, along the entire value chain, high losses are recorded. If we could only come up with one solution based on limited funds for where to focus on to limit or reduce post-harvest losses, where do you feel or believe the funding or the attention should go to? If we could only solve one major issue, what should that issue be?
In terms of providing technology for threshing.
Okay. Why is that?
Yes, that'll be a very good way to go within each community. Yes.
Can you expatiate on that? Why threshing? Why particularly that?
Yeah, because that's where we'll have most of the losses. In harvesting, what we can do in harvesting is training and keep retraining. But in terms of technology transfer, if there are threshers, because you have people manually threshing this soybean, so you are going to have a lot of losses. So if you have 50 people, imagine if you're not concentrating, you need to stand up to go get something and this is on your leg, you will lose a lot of some of these things. But if we have where there are threshers in this country, what they need to do is harvest, bring to the community, bring to the thresher, they thresh it for them, bag it for them at that same location. The process is easier. So I think that's why I wanted to do, or I want to go for threshing.
Threshing. Fantastic. Thank you so much. There are people always attending our webinars looking for business ideas and a bit of input as to what makes sense and where to invest in. So you've heard it now from someone who has a lot of experience from the field. If you were to invest into something when it comes to post-harvest losses in soybeans, then threshing is the way to go. I'm just looking through the chat and there aren't any more questions. And please use the chat function only. Please use the chat function to ask your questions. I had said that a few times.
I raised my hand. Can I say something?
I would prefer for you to please use the chat function. I had said it a couple of times, so please use the chat to ask your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So while we allow for 1 or 2 more questions to be asked, Desmond, what are your closing thoughts on the situation of post-harvest losses in soybeans in Nigeria, based on what is perhaps happening in other communities in other African states, and what are your hopes for Nigeria?
Okay, for me, Nigeria has a lot of potential. The good news is we've been able to increase our production from 680 tons from 2012 to about 1.2 million tons as it stands as of today. Yes, we have the potential. We have the land. We have the resources in terms of human resource. And also, I think the funding can also come in. One of the challenges with agriculture in Nigeria, in Africa, is that we don't put in enough funding. You want to do tech, and you're hearing $5 billion into tech development. But in agriculture, you just want to hear 200 million, 100 million, and all of those kind of things, you know? So that is where the real issue is. We need to not just only do with where we are and upscale to major that can be mechanized. That's what I look at. Which are actually high because and funny enough, we have the land in Niger State, the land is vast. You can travel kilometers without even seeing buildings or a vast land that is arable for you. So if the land is available, some of these developed countries don't even have the kind of land that we have. They're using technology to solve some of these things. So we that have the land, why can't we just get some of those technologies and put them into use in our land and see what we can get?
So
actually
definitely
do very
more
well.
investment.
I think soybean is one thing that we need to bring to the front burner. Yes, more investment needs to come in. Then we need to have more. In fact, and I know a lot of people are interested in soybean in Nigeria. It's a way to go, and then also in Africa. to do more, it has more value than rice because it's good for exports, it's good for, and with the Russian-Ukraine crisis, it's also a bigger challenge because I can tell you for a fact, Olam just got funding from IFC, 200 million for the purchase of inputs. $200 million for the purchase of just inputs, of which soybean is one of those inputs. So you can imagine what that can do to a company. So if we have like 5 or 10 companies that have this kind of potential or capacity, imagine what that does to our environment in terms of employment and engagements. So that's the thing.
Great, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And now a final question from Nana. I'm going to read it out. Are you looking into using green devices like biodigesters to process waste to generate green electricity to mop up post-harvest waste from soybeans? So a question around green devices and biodigesters.
Funny enough, we've not gotten to that technology yet, but that must happen. I stumbled across a document that was talking about carbon emission and using soybean to solve that. We've not even started producing enough soybean that can even take care of our needs. So yes, it's a way to go. There are opportunities across the value chain. This is one of the opportunities we can get because you can imagine what the waste we can generate from soybean in terms of the threshing, what we can generate from it. So yes, it's a way to go. Looking at our environment and Nigeria to be specific, using green electricity is a tough one now. Even the solar that we have, we know how even expensive it can be. So yes, these are opportunities, but let's see where we can start from first before we get to this level.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Desmond. It's been really informative, very insightful. I believe that there is a lot of interest from side of the participants to engage with you further. So please do reach out to Desmond. His contact details are still on the screen. There was a question mid-presentation whether the presentation would be made available. Yes, we have recorded all of our webinars and posted them on our AHK YouTube channel. So by the end of the week, if you visit us on our AHK YouTube channel, you would also be able to go through that presentation, and the recording will be on our YouTube page, and this presentation would also be shared with all participants. So yes, please look out for the presentation that we'll be sharing afterwards, and not just Desmond's presentation, but also that of Zainab from SDG Market Building. So please do reach out, get in touch, and connect. Again, thank you so much to Desmond for taking the time to really talk us through a really interesting process and his experience, and a huge thank you for Zainab, who has been with us throughout the series and is also available for you to contact. So thank you everyone for your time.
Okay.
And see you next
Thank you very much, Olayinka. And please, Zainab would like to how we can have your solutions for our MSMEs in Niger State.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
You too.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.